Hi, this is Sandra, and I'm going to show you how to do some foundation paper piecing. This is a free pattern that you can go to LillyEllaStitchery.com, Butterfly Charm Block, and you can pick up this pattern. There are 4 or 5 pages, and included is the foundation paper piecing pieces for every butterfly. Today I'm working on Gidget, and I'll show you some of the pieces. But you will cut out each one of these papers and you will use them. Here is some of the butterflies that I've made. There's Pepper, Gidget, and Cricket. And this is the one I'm making during this tutorial. You will need, they suggest add a quarter ruler. I am just using my 2.5 by 6 or 2.5 by 8. Here's the pieces. I have some of them already completed just to make this go by faster. And the placement of them, you just lay out your pattern. This is F, C2, B, A1, A2. You can print them in reverse. I'm making A3, which will go right here. And then I have A1 that will go over here, and C2 one that goes right here. So we are going to start with, I will show you on this one. And I use a Christmas card for the cutting. Trying to figure out how to get this to tilt. Just be a little patient. If it's not good, I won't record it. Okay, and foundation paper piecing is all in the numbers. 1, 2, 3. So between line 1 and 2, this line right here, I will, and recommended, use flathead pins. I place the fabric to where it goes 1/2 inch beyond the point. I always make sure there's plenty of room, because we are going to trim this eventually out here to this dotted line. So when I lay it down, I take a Christmas card, anything that's thin, and if you have add a quarter ruler, I guess the other side is thin, you press on that line, and then I take my ruler, lay the quarter line against the paper, and I trim. That's this card. Now on this one here, it's a little tricky because this piece goes clear up here. So I cut this piece that is plenty long. I lay it down. I lay this piece up there, right in the middle of it. Then I fold back on that line the other way. And then I put the add a quarter ruler on the butterfly, or on the base of the butterfly. I wish the camera would quit moving. And then I trim this piece that I'm going to use off. It saves it going out using a bigger piece. And then this piece sits right on top of this piece. And you can use a light or a window to line it up. But they line up right there. And when this opens and you sewed your pieces on, it will go up and cover all the edges. See how it covers the edges? And I have it just held at the finger seams. So now I will go sew this little line right here. You start 2 stitches before the line and you end at least 2 stitches beyond the line. If it's near the outside edge, you can go all the way over to the dotted line. I will cut the threads, come back over here, trim off these threads because you don't need them. Pull out my pin now because it's secure. Press this open. I finger press there to make sure I get the right fold back. And see, this covers completely all behind the paper. So now you can take the pin, put it over here for now, because you don't have to trim any of this off right this second. Now we're going to go to line 2 and 3, because we just did 1 and 2. Now we're going to sew the line between 2 and 3, and that's this line. So release these stitches by just pulling on the paper a little tiny bit. Lay it down with your card or your thin cardstock, credit card, or whatever you use. See, it's on the line. Fold your paper back, press it down, remove the card. Now you get your 1/4 inch. I'll turn this, or you can see again the paper, the 1/4 inch. And then you trim all that off. Those are unneeded pieces. They go into the garbage or wherever. Then you need a piece now big enough for this. I am just grabbing, this here is about 4 inches by 4 inches. It's just a piece I have left. So fold that back down on the line. Line this paper right sides together. Put it up there. And you can kind of check. See, I just held it at a seam, and it more than covers where all the paper. So now I will just unfold that, and I will now sew on this line. I will start at the dotted line and sew clear to the dotted line. I just would rather it be more secure than not. And we're stitching at a 1.5. The smaller the stitch on foundation paper piecing, they say it's the easier it is for pulling out your paper. And when you pull out your paper, your stitches come with it, believe it or not. It's like it can loosen your stitches. So I'm trimming off those strings. And then finger press it open. That way we know it's in the correct spot. Turn it over, take out the pin. And see, it covers it more than needed. I'm going to take it over and press it. That way you get a good fold. So it's now pressed. And I'm going to turn it over. And I'm going to trim it. To save on fabric, you look to see. This would be a good fabric saver, because it's leaving a nice big chunk. This would be a fabric waste because you're cut your size down. So I'm going to cut along the dotted line at this angle. This piece will be used again, so it gets sat to the side. And now all the pieces are sewed. There's 1, 2, 3. So now I can trim the whole thing. On the dotted line, I'm trimming. Those are too little to reuse. And then there's a little point out here that wants trimmed. If you leave it a little bit long, it doesn't matter because you're going to square up the block when you're all done. So now I'm going to cut along this dotted line. And like I said, I leave a little extra. I'd rather have a little extra than not. And then it has this little tiny tip that needs trimmed. You don't necessarily have to use the ruler. And that piece now goes in right here. So these pieces are done. And there, as you can see, D, E, F. So if we flip D over here, E here, F here, that is the proper placement. Now, to sew these together, this is my recommendation, is you take your pin, put it in the top point of this number 1. There's a tip top point. Put your pin in there. Then you take your D, and there's a top point that was near right here. You're going to put your pin in there, but from the reverse side. So it might take an extra time to get it. Oh, I got it the first time. So then that pin goes in there. You line up down here, this edge where you're going to sew. And then you can double check and see if that point lines up with the point on the other side. So there's that point and that point. And because of that extra seam, I need it over just a little bit. You can do the pin thing again. Put the pin through here. And the pin goes through there. And it comes out at that point. Which that means the correct. I just hold firmly with my fingers. Because if you pin, it moves your pattern. So I'm going to leave that one down there. But up here, I'm just going to leave the pin in. Keep hold of it firmly. Take it over to the sewing machine. Let's see if I can move you to the sewing machine. We'll get a nice line up there. And place it clear at the start. Clear up at the point you want to start. It's like, where's my camera? And on the 1.5, you can sew through the paper and the material all at the same time. Sometimes it's a little stubborn. I'm going to try and hold it up and sew at the same time. As I get near the pin, I will stop, put the needle down, remove the pin. That way you don't move it. Sorry for my hand. And off you sew. So now I will trim that and go back over to the table here. Now we're removing that from the sewing machine. Bringing it back over here. You can open it and check where you're at. Here's the wing. Here's the body of the butterfly. And it looks really good. Well, what I do now is press that open. Fold this paper both directions back here. Hold this way and this way. You can now remove that paper by just tearing it off because it's now perforated. And it'll tear off all the way down to the bottom. Tear off the little piece up top. It will make it easier and take out one of the layers when you sew the next piece on. Go over on this side. Do a little string trimming. You know how strings always get in the way. Trim this little piece off. Trim off the next paper. Trim off the last paper. And see, that's all nice and more pliable. I press it out away from this E triangle, because the next one, when I sew it, will be sewing from here down. And this one will also press out. It'll make like the TP, the little A-frame. So I'm going to press this with my iron. Be right back. Because the thing with quilting is press, press, and press again. It's like, it seems like there's never too much pressing. So on this piece now, I'm going to add the F piece. The F piece goes right here on this edge. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put the pin in the point of this number 1, the solid line number 1, and your pin goes through. And then I'm going to down here to the pin of this F, this point here. I'm going to, you kind of put your fingers near it and then push through till you catch that point. Almost there. There it is. And then it will line up here. And you can double check to see if your points line up. And I'll do it just for you guys. This point, and you go straight through. It goes almost to that point. So that's your alignment of this sew line. So I'm going to start here sewing. I'm going to sew down and off the pattern here. I'll get it started and then I'll move the camera over. So it's like needle down. Move the camera now. That way I have a little more steadier hand. And there it is under the foot. Start sewing. Just take your time. I just sew to the edge of the line. And the pin is there because it's holding this point in place. Now that I'm closer, I will take the pin out. Finish sewing down the line. And it is done. Take the camera back over here. Show you the piece again. It opens up. It lines up here. There's room down here for trimming because I left it a little bit long. But this is the bottom of the butterfly. So I'll do the same thing. Press the paper well, both directions. One way, then the other way. And remove these papers. Because we're going to trim anything excess off anyway. Just pull the papers. As you can see, they just kind of rip off. I keep grabbing the under material. because every time you sew, there's another place that the paper, across the paper, it makes another perforated line. A little perforated up there. If you leave a little tiny piece, it's no biggie. So now this one will press, and I'll press this one open here. That way it makes it thinner out here. If you press it that way, you got all this bulk going in one spot. And you want the bulk to be split. If you want, you can press open. And it's like, right now, I can remove all these papers because this piece has been completely, this section has all been done. You just pull the paper off. As simple as all this. It's very simple. Like this piece up here did not pull. You can always go back. This piece here, if you stretch and wiggle, it pops right off. Now this one here, for right now, I want to make sure to leave these two pieces in because I have to sew on this line. So I can take this big one off here. English paper piecing, you pull off the pieces that aren't needed. And that's what I'm doing. These are not needed anymore. Same piece on here. Take off this big piece. And when you're pulling, that tugs on the string, the threads. And that's why they recommend sewing with a smaller seam, because we're putting stress on those stitches as we're pulling this paper off even. So I just follow the instructions of foundation paper piecing. Trim off that extra string right there. Oh, I forgot one little paper. And that's the bottom of the body. And it's a lot more pliable and easier. So now I'm going to go back and press again really good. And this is going to be part 1. I will show you the other pieces that we are going to come back on the following video. But I'll show you the body again. And when we'll trim off this here, dog ears. But the next parts are, we got C2 done, A2 done. So we'll flip them by A, the way they go. Here's B. And this one is not completed yet. It will be. And this is the other one. We will come back in part 2 and we will finish these. And the other half, the butterfly, will be completed at that time. Thank you.